Hello everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Scouting Show. I'm really excited to do this episode here. We're going to be doing our week 4 power rankings, kind of looking back at what happened in week 3, reacting to a lot of those games, and then putting every team in an order here in a power ranking video. So really excited to get into this. Please like, subscribe, comment. I'm really trying to grow this channel out as much as possible so I can continue to put out content just like this. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Just click that button right down below. Let's hop right into this now. At number 32 in the power rankings here, I have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks played the Atlanta Falcons this week, who were previously number 32 here. They lost this game 27-23. They had a chance to win it at the end. Ultimately, Geno Smith did throw an interception on 4th down. It was really disappointing because, this was a real chance for the Seahawks to show that they were not the worst team in the NFL and that they have a lot of talent on this roster. And I don't think that they showed that. Geno Smith didn't play particularly well. I thought the defense had a really, really rough start to this game. They scored 17 points on their first 3 possessions, so kind of a rough showing for the Seattle defense. I just think that they have too much to clean up right now. Geno Smith is not a franchise quarterback. Your offensive line has some woes. Your defense has some serious issues. So I just don't think that they're in a fantastic place right now. This game could have been for the number 1 overall pick. I think that these are 2 of the worst teams in the league. The loser of this game was always going to be ranked number 32 in my rankings here. And so that's where we have the Seattle Seahawks here. Coming in at number 31, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans fell to the Chicago Bears on a last-second field goal from Cairo Santos. This was a disappointing game for the Texans. I thought that really the Bears didn't play particularly well. They ran really well on them, but Justin Fields once again had a really bad day. He threw 2 interceptions. We'll get to them in a little bit. But for the Texans, you have some promising things. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie both looked really, really good on defense. And I think you have some good pieces to build around. Now, the disappointing thing is Davis Mills in the offense really couldn't get going much at all. The passing game just looks out of sync. The run game, Dameon Pierce was running hard, but he was fumbling. He lost 2 fumbles. Luckily, the Texans did recover both, but just not a very clean game from the Texans. Davis Mills throws a pick at the very end to essentially win it for the Bears. Just disappointing that the Texans, who I think were very much in this game, couldn't close it out. They couldn't finish. And the Texans are one of 2 teams now who are winless. They are 0-2-1, not as bad as Las Vegas, but I just don't think that they've shown very much. And we're going to have them dropping down 1 spot here. Dropping down 2 spots, I have the New York Jets. Joe Flacco and the Jets were not able to rekindle the magic that they had last week against the Browns. They lose to the Bengals here, did not score a single offensive touchdown. Joe Flacco just didn't look good. He had a couple of really bad throws, threw an interception to Logan Wilson. There was a couple of other balls that really should have been picked off as well. He was sacked 4 times, strip sacked like 3 of those times. So just not a good performance from the Jets there. The offensive line looked rough. Garrett Wilson went out with an injury. He was able to come back, but just not a great performance for them starting out. The defense, Joe Burrow and the offense really kind of got cooking on them. One really positive takeaway is Sauce Gardner is legit. He was absolutely locking up Chase. He was frustrating him, and I think he is well on his way to becoming an absolute premier number 1 corner in this league, if he's not already there, because I'm not convinced he's not. There was just a lot of bad discipline. You had Corey Davis getting a penalty at the end there. This just doesn't seem like a very well-coached team. And for Robert Saleh going into year 2, that's got to change. That's got to be much better moving forward. At number 29, I have the Atlanta Falcons. We mentioned to them in the game versus the Seahawks here. Marcus Mariota did some nice things here and there. They got Kyle Pitts way more involved this week. Drake London is having a really good rookie season so far. Had another touchdown. But really, the whole thing with the Falcons was Cordarrelle Patterson. Cordarrelle Patterson broke out last year. He had like a age 30 breakout, which is absolutely unheard of. But he is a legit running back. People don't want to admit it because he plays for the Falcons and he wasn't good until last year, really, as an offensive weapon. But man, this dude is legit. He ran for 141 yards and a touchdown on really not that many carries as well. He has the ability to catch out of the backfield as well. He is a real weapon. Him, Pitts, London, this is a core that you can kind of build around and lean on if you're Arthur Smith, and you pick up a big win. For a team that's not probably going to have a lot of those, this is a really good momentum builder and something that they can potentially look at moving forward. and kind of hang their hat on a little bit. Because of that, I have them moving up 3 spots, finally out of that number 32 spot. Good for them, moving up to number 29. At number 28, I have the Washington Commanders. Man, this team had a rough game offensively. The offensive line gave up 9 sacks. Now, part of that was certainly on Carson Wentz. They just couldn't get the passing game going at all. There's like that one stat that there's a picture going around where the Eagles had like 320 passing yards and the Commanders had -1. That was well into the third quarter. They just couldn't get anything going at all. They finally do get the safety and the consolation touchdown at the end, but they were thoroughly dominated. It's really just as simple as that. The defense didn't look good. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith had amazing games. Jalen Hurts really didn't play his best and still dominated. This is just a team, the Eagles, that are just so hot. The Commanders really took the brunt of that, and man, they had a bad game. Carson Wentz did not look good against his former team. The offensive line had a really rough go of it. This is just not a team I feel confident in. I don't think they're heading in the right direction, and that's really concerning for just a team that doesn't necessarily have a lot of promise and a lot of things to hang their hat on and a lot of things to build for in the future. At number 27, I had the Carolina Panthers. This team was one that I was just about ready to throw in that 32 spot and just be done with it because I hate Matt Rule. I don't think they're well coached. I just think they're an absolute train wreck. And then they go out and beat the Saints, who I was really high on. I had them ranked number 10 in the power rankings last week. We'll get to them relatively soon here, but the Panthers come in and they get the win. That's what matters. The offense looks horrendous. Baker Mayfield just isn't really looking like the guy, which is disappointing because I thought he could have proven that. DJ Moore is just not getting involved. Christian McCaffrey is playing well at the moment, but there's just not a whole lot to be excited about on this Panthers team from an offensive perspective. On the defensive side of the ball, on the other hand, you had the fumble recovery for a touchdown. J.C. Horn is playing out of his absolute mind right now. That's super exciting. You've got some really nice pieces on that defensive side. Derek Brown is continuing to emerge. Brian Burns is looking fantastic. Marquise Haynes is the one with the fumble return there. You've got a lot of fun pieces on that defensive side of the ball. It's just the offense looks so bad. I think whoever inherits this team next year when Matt Rule is eventually fired, I think that they're going to have a lot of fun pieces to work with on the defensive side of the ball, and you've really just got to infuse a lot of juice and a lot of talent into that offensive side of the ball, assuming Matt Rule gets fired, which he definitely should be. So, moving on from the Panthers there. But for now, they do move up 2 spots. At number 26, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. This one really pains me. They were kind of one of my teams that I was really excited about. I was a little bit higher on them than some of the other people. I had them making the playoffs, and I will go ahead and admit I was wrong. I do not think that they've played well up to this point. It's unfortunate because they only have a -13 point differential through 3 games. They're 0-3 in those games, so they're losing close games. They're losing games that they should be in. They should have beat the Cardinals last week. You almost came back and tied the game against the Titans this week. It's just unfortunate you're not able to pull them out the last second yet. And because of that, you're 0-3. And it's really hard to come back from an 0-3 and make the playoffs. And so I am dropping them here pretty significantly, down 7 spots here. You've just got to be better closing out games. Josh McDaniels has had a rough start here in Las Vegas. I don't think it's fully on him, but at some point, Darren Waller, Devontae Adams are not getting involved in the game, and they need to be. You got to get your stars involved. You've got to get them their plays. Back in Green Bay, Devontae Adams, everybody knew he was going to get the ball, and they still were able to make it happen. It's a product of Derek Carr. It's a product of the play calling. It's a product of the scheme. I just don't think it's all gelling together really well right now. And I do think that they can remain competitive. They're going to win some games definitely this season. It's just right now, 0-3, you're the only team in the NFL that's 0-3 through 3 weeks. That's not a good sign at all. You've really got to work to figure something out and really fast because this is a fast league. You'll get left in the dust, particularly in the AFC, which is really tough. The AFC West is a little bit more open than we expected, but you've got to get into gear fast if you're the Raiders. At number 25, I have the Chicago Bears remaining in that spot from last week. They do pick up the win versus the Texans, and they're 2-1, which is something that I don't think many people predicted at all going into this year. And they play the Giants next week. They definitely have a decent chance of going 3-1, which is absolutely crazy considering the talent on this roster. Now, the disappointing thing We'll get this out of the way first. Justin Fields does not look confident, he does not look comfortable, and he does not look like the future of this franchise right now. Now, Bears fans are probably going to be sad to hear that, and I certainly am too. I was really high on Justin Fields. I'm a huge fan of his, but so far, he just does not look like he can make the plays. He cannot read the field efficiently, and when his guys are open, he's just not hitting them where he should be hitting them. He had 2 really bad interceptions. One was just an awful misfire where he basically just threw it straight to the defender, and the other one was in triple coverage, and he's just forcing balls because he just doesn't have many chances to throw. He only was 8 for 17 yesterday. He'd only completed 15 passes through his first 2 games. He just has not looked good up to this point. Now, he still has plenty of time to change that, and his supporting cast is not fantastic around him. His wide receivers are just terrible. His offensive line is playing better than we all expected, but it's still not fantastic. Now, the great news is they're one of the best rushing attacks in the league. David Montgomery did unfortunately go down, but I truly believe Khalil Herbert can step right into that role, and they have a really good rushing attack so far. Now, a part of that is they rely too heavily on the running game. They ran it on 3rd and 6 in their own territory. They were running it on 3rd and 18. It's just they're not trusting Fields to push the ball down the field, and when they are throwing, it's just screens, it's quick passes, it's just one read. Pretty much neutral game situations, it's always a run. I don't know how much of that is they're just running the ball really efficiently and how much of it is they really don't trust Fields. So a big win, that's a good thing. You know, you're 2-1, a winning record, chance to go 3-1. It's really good for the Bears, learning how to win and developing that winning culture under Eberflus. Just not a good sign for Justin Fields, which I think is really the primary goal of this season, was to develop Justin Fields. At number 24, I have the New England Patriots, down 7 spots here. Now, the Patriots were playing the Ravens relatively tough here, and they've had some good moments, particularly through this game, but the big issue now, Mac Jones is hurt. He has a high ankle sprain, probably some structural damage there. No bone injury, but definitely a big concern. It's probably going to keep him out for a couple of weeks, and even still, those things tend to linger. It's really disappointing for the Patriots. I just don't trust this team with Brian Hoyer. I think they were already really limited with Mac Jones, and he was forcing passes today. He threw 3 picks, probably should have had 4. Just not good to be turning this offense over to Brian Hoyer in a competitive AFC. It's just disappointing because I think this Patriots team has enough talent in theory that they could be pushing for that last playoff spot. But with no Mac Jones, no real offensive weapons that scare you, suspect play calling, it's just a recipe for a really bad season, I think. And so I am dropping them down pretty significantly here, but I do think that that's relatively warranted. Like I said, they had some really nice moments against the Ravens, but defensively, they gave up a lot of points. They let Lamar Jackson take over. Offensively, you're going to be so limited moving forward. So I have them moving down significantly here to number 24. At number 23, I have the New York Giants. They sit at 2-1 after the Monday Night Football loss to the Dallas Cowboys. This is a team that I just think has some natural regression in them when it comes to a record perspective. It's awesome that they're 2-1, and they were in it just until the very end with the Cowboys. They don't have the weapons on offense that you would really hope for in a team that you're continuing to build. And part of that is they just had such limited resources coming into the season, but it's also guys are not stepping up into the roles that you need. Kenny Golladay had a terrible drop today. Your receivers just weren't making plays. Sterling Shepard is probably going to be out. I don't have any updates on the injury right now, but he gets carted off. Non-contact injury, wasn't even cutting. That doesn't look good at all. So you've got a lot of issues in that playmaker room there. Saquon Barkley looks legit, though. That's something that you can definitely be excited about. And I think the defense is playing pretty well with Wink Martindale as well. Just as we talked about with the Bears here, you're 2-1, which is much better than anyone expected. And you're going and you're playing Chicago for a chance to be 3-1. One of these teams is going to be 3-1, which nobody would have expected at the beginning of the year. So definitely exciting for the Giants. I think they've looked a little more convincing than the Bears, so that's why they're a little bit higher. But they remain in the same 23 spot here. I don't think that, a close loss on Monday Night Football to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys really affected my opinion too much of them. I pretty much see them still the same. At number 22, I have the Detroit Lions remaining in that spot from last week as well. The Lions had the lead pretty much the whole game. They controlled it. They played well. They got the running game going again. Jared Goff looked efficient. The defense was playing super well. And then they unfortunately blow it at the end, which is just so rough for Lions fans. I think that's kind of going to be a product of this team this year, though. It's going to be a scrappy team. You're going to be in every game, but I think that, they have a lot of issues, particularly in the back end of that secondary, besides Jeff Okudah, who is playing lockdown right now. But just, you've got some issues on the defensive side of the ball. Anybody can really get back into the game, particularly a pretty darn good Vikings team, and they just let them back into it. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings were really aggressive at the end of the game, and they come back and win. Unfortunate for the Lions, but I just think that they're going to be competitive in every game. They may have some heartbreaking losses and some really emotional wins. I just think that they're continuing to build that culture, continuing to learn how to win and find their way in the NFL under Dan Campbell. So I just kind of have the same view, just like the Giants here. I don't think that this week really changed my opinion too much of them. I had them winning this game in my score predictions. I think that it played out pretty similarly to how I expected. They just ended up losing in the very end. At number 21, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers here. They played on Thursday Night Football against the Browns. I just found their offense so unimpressive. Mitch Trubisky is pretty much showing what he did in Chicago at this point. The whole hope of a revitalization there after studying in Buffalo, I just don't think it's working out at all. Eventually, you're going to turn to Kenny Pickett. I don't know when that'll be, but I just don't think your offense is explosive enough right now with Mitch Trubisky to win a lot of games. Najee Harris really hasn't been able to get going at all so far this season, and you're just not really in a good spot right now offensively. Defensively, you really miss TJ Watt. The Browns just kind of ran all over them. The Steelers just don't have a good run defense, which is so uncharacteristic of them, but we saw that last year and kind of attributed it a lot to injuries. Now everybody comes back and they're still really bad on the run defense. So the Browns, with their rushing attack, just kind of ran all over them. Jacoby Brissett was efficient and they just got the win. And I just don't see the Steelers team being able to stick in games with the really high-powered offenses that are clicking. You think of Buffalo, you think of Kansas City, you think of Philadelphia, you think of Green Bay. All these teams that are really, really good offensively, I just don't think that they can stick with them. And so I have them moving down to number 21 here. At number 20, I have the Tennessee Titans. They played in the do-or-die game with the Las Vegas Raiders this week. They do come out with the win. They came out really swinging hard. They kind of built themselves a big lead, and they let the Raiders back into this game, which was not great to see from the Tennessee perspective there. I think that they clutched up in a big moment there that kind of finally got the offense unlocked a little bit, at least to start. Things cooled off towards the end, but, they have so much talent on this team. It's just about getting everybody healthy and getting everybody working together. Unfortunately, some of those guys that I said, you got to get them healthy, they're not coming back this year. Harold Landry not coming back. Taylor Lewan not coming back. You got to keep Derrick Henry and all those really key guys healthy as well. And otherwise, this team just isn't going to be able to be effective. I've always kind of been on they're going to finish probably around 500, maybe a little below, maybe a little above, but they were bound for regression. I think that this game doesn't really change a whole lot for me. Besides, I do think that they proved that they have a lot of fight in them and they're not going to go down without a fight. And Mike Vrabel continues to get this team to play hard for him, which is important. And I never doubted that with this coaching staff. But good to see them pick up their first win there. And I think that that's going to be really important moving forward. As I mentioned with the Raiders, going down 0-3 is really, really tough to come back from. So it's definitely good that they were able to avoid that and kind of put themselves back into contention in a really weak AFC South. At number 19, I have the New Orleans Saints down 9 spots here. I had them ranked too high. It's as simple as that. I believed in this defense. I believed Jameis Winston was going to get things right. And man, they looked bad. I know Winston's playing hurt. I get that. But his decision-making the last 2 games have been absolutely horrible. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if I just think that they should put in Andy Dalton. until Jameis is fully healthy, because right now he's just reverting back to bad habits and it's just not working. On a positive note, Chris Olave is looking really good. The defense relatively limited a lot of Carolina's playmakers. You just weren't really able to find the points when you needed to find them. I just think that this team looks significantly worse than they should based on the talent level. And I don't know how much of that comes down to coaching. I don't know how much of that comes down to preparation. Carolina has had their number in this matchup, but you've just simply got to be better. In 2 games now that you've looked really bad, and the first game against the Falcons, you probably should have lost that if the Falcons weren't the Falcons. So they could be looking at 0-3 right now, and it would be a really, really bad outlook for the Saints. They do sit at 1-2. I do think that they have enough talent, but they've got to be better. At number 18, I have the Dallas Cowboys moving up 2 spots here. Cooper Rush is doing a really good job keeping this team afloat until Dak gets back, and it kind of sounds like that'll be sooner rather than later. Once Dak comes back, I think they really kind of solidify themselves as a true playoff contender, but hats off to Cooper Rush for keeping this team afloat, continuing to make them competitive, and I think that does say a lot about Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn and this coaching staff. Mike McCarthy's terrible, but his staff is really, really good. And I think that they've done a really good job playing into the strengths of their players that they have available. And, just doing the best that they can with what they have. They've had a really good start so far, beating the Bengals, beating the Giants, who were 2-0. You were playing in New York. This is not an easy game, playing with Cooper Rush. So really, really good performance for them. They're continuing to stay afloat, continuing to be competitive. Once Dak comes back, this is a true playoff contender. At number 17, I have the Arizona Cardinals. They dropped to 1-2 this week following a loss to the Rams. I just don't think that the Cardinals look consistent. They just don't look good. They come out flat. Cliff Kingsbury just doesn't know what he's doing. And I hate to go on this rant every single week, but I just do not understand why he's the coach of this team. I think that this roster is really just poorly constructed. You don't have anyone on defense. The corners are not looking good. It's just so bad. And at this point, you're really just relying on DeAndre Hopkins to come in after his suspension and really elevate this team with Kyler. And there is some element of that probably will work, but I just don't understand. If they win 9 games and squeak into the playoffs, that can't be an excuse for Cliff to continue being the coach here. He's just holding them back too much. And I know the Rams have had this matchup kind of on lockdown ever since McVay and Cliff have been there. It's just something that they've got to be better at. And the Cardinals, they just don't look good. Kyler Murray continues to be bad on Call of Duty weekends. I don't know how relevant that is, but it is just an interesting note. But after, the comeback, really emotional win last week, they just kind of lay an egg. Kyler's throwing it a million times and you just can't move the ball. It's just not a good performance from the Cardinals. Just poorly coached, poorly executed, just not good all around. Number 17 for them. At number 16, I have the Cleveland Browns moving up 5 spots here. I've been really impressed with how Jacoby Brissett has kind of handled this ship and kept it afloat while Watson's out. I think that they've ran the ball really effectively. I think defense has played really well. Hopefully Myles Garrett's okay. If you didn't hear, he got into a single car crash and had to go to the hospital. Sounds like everything is hopefully okay, but definitely thinking about him. Hopefully he's all right. This defense has been really good, though, and they've played their part effectively, just kind of containing them, getting the ball back, and letting Hunt and Chubb take over games. This team is definitely a true playoff contender, and especially with the Steelers faltering and you beating them. And I think that this AFC North is going to be really competitive between the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns, all potentially fighting for that crown there and some playoff spots as well. So good job for the Browns there, winning a big game on Thursday night. You're coming off of a little bit of a longer week of rest. We'll see if they can get the win versus Atlanta. Coming in at number 15, this is the biggest riser of our power ranking series so far. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars moving up 12 spots here. Absolute crazy. I just wasn't super convinced after last week. I wasn't quite ready to commit to the rise of the Jaguars. I am now. You absolutely blow the wheels off of the Chargers. And the Chargers have been injured to all hell. We'll talk about them in a little bit here. But the Jaguars have been really, really impressive so far to start the season. I know you kind of laid a little bit of a stinker week 1 against the Commanders, who are not a good football team, but you blow out the Colts last week. You shut them out, who just beat the Chiefs, and then you go in and you beat the Chargers, and you just beat the snot out of them. Trevor Lawrence is ascending into a top quarterback. He's the generational guy that we all thought, we saw. I think that guy is really coming out of his shell. Doug Peterson is getting the most out of him, and the offseason additions have worked tremendously so far. Everybody, including myself, mocked them for signing Christian Kirk to that deal, signing Zay Jones to be a true number 2 receiver, signing Evan Ingram, drafting Trayvon Walker, Tyson Campbell last year. You've got Devin Lloyd. All of these guys are making huge impacts on this team. And, eventually, after you draft high that many times, you spend that much money, something's got to work. But this team is really coming together under Doug Peterson, and I think that they are a legit playoff team. They probably are AFC South favorites at this point, in my book, and I'm really excited to see them moving forward. They're going to have their growing pains, no doubt about it. Trevor Lawrence is still young. He's still learning what he can get away with, but he's already halfway to his touchdown total from his rookie season. He's just taking so much better care of the ball. He's looking really legit, and this Jaguars team is not something to scoff at this point. I'm really excited for the Jaguars because, their fan base has deserved this for a long time. A lot of these long-suffering teams I definitely like to root for. I'm really happy that Trevor Lawrence is turning out to be the guy that, you drafted him to be. So that's really awesome for the Jaguars. Major props to them for a huge win this week, and they may continue to rise. We'll see. At number 14, I have the Denver Broncos. This is probably the least convincing 2-1 team in NFL history. I said it as a joke, obviously, but this team has not necessarily played fantastically. And I'm going to continue to rank them in this area until they prove otherwise. Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense simply could not move the ball until the final drive against the 49ers. Part of that is the 49ers have an absolutely awesome defense. D'Amico Ryans is a fantastic coordinator there, but until the last drive, they couldn't get anything going at all. They punted like 10 times. I think it was the first time since forever that a team has won with 10 punts or more. They just couldn't get the ball moving efficiently at all. Now, the defense looked really good, and that's certainly something of note, but this offense has got to be better. They just look so out of sync. Russell Wilson can't seem to get the ball rolling, really. Hopefully this final drive can kind of propel them forward, but I just, they sit at 2-1, tied at the top of the AFC West with the Chiefs somehow, but I'm just not fully convinced on this team still. So we'll continue to rank them in this area, but for now, they continue to move up, mostly because teams drop, but certainly a good thing there. At number 13, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I've kind of kept them right in the area that I think that they are. I just couldn't quite get off of them too fast, and they come in and they beat the Chiefs. Now, there's a big kind of thing that we need to talk about in this game, and that's the Chiefs should have won this game if it were not for special teams. Kansas City outplayed them offensively, they outplayed them defensively, but they just lost this game because of special teams. You had that Sky Moore fumble, muffed punt. You had missed field goals, missed kicks all around. It was just such a bad performance from the Chiefs special teams, and it ultimately cost them the game. Now, there is some kudos to go around for the Colts. I think that a really big win here that you can kind of point to and be excited about is something that's really important and really motivating for this team. You also got Jonathan Taylor going. You got the offense looking significantly better, scoring some points. The offensive line looks really, really bad. I don't know why, but they do look really bad. They need to get that cleaned up. They need to continue to develop on that defense, but this is at least a signature win that you can point to and be excited about. And I'm going to continue to be high on the Colts for now. And I do have them rated above the Jaguars. I'm not sure that I would pick them at this point to win this division, but right now I do have them here. I just think that they have a little bit more solidified veteran talent than the Jaguars. It's going to be really interesting to see moving forward if that remains the case, though. At number 12, I have the San Francisco 49ers. This team, I just don't understand. I mean, they have such a good defense, but the offense just looks so bad through all three of their performances, really. They've had ups and downs offensively. This week, I mean, you had Jimmy G running out of the back of the end zone. You just had stupid fumbles. You had, it's just such an absolute disaster of an offensive performance for the 49ers. The defense did their part. You gave up 11 points, really 9 because the offense got safetied. It's just, this should have been a win for the 49ers. The Broncos did not play well. And you just needed one really good drive from Jimmy Garoppolo. You needed one really good play from George Kittle or Deebo Samuel or one of the a million weapons they have, and they just couldn't get it. And to make everything worse, Trent Williams goes down with an injury. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. They've got to figure things out offensively. And for a coach, Kyle Shanahan, who I haven't always been the highest on, this season I went all in on the 49ers. I was really excited for him. And he needs to get things figured out and fast because this offense looks bad right now and you've got to figure things out while you still can. At number 11, I have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are showing some serious fight this season. Kevin O'Connell has been really aggressive. He's been a really, I think he's kind of unlocked this offense. Now, Justin Jefferson had his second quiet game in a row, and I don't think that that's an amazing sign, but they're getting other people involved, making them cover. If you're going to take Justin Jefferson away, then okay, we'll throw it to Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, and we'll make things happen. Now, Dalvin Cook does go down with a dislocated shoulder. It sounds like he'll play, but I don't know how healthy he'll be. Defensively, they still kind of have some issues. You give up a lot of points to the Lions early on in the game. You kind of clamped up a bit, but they've just got to be better. You got to play a full game. But I do think that this Vikings team is headed in the right direction. I think Kevin O'Connell's done a really good job so far, and they are certainly, the arrows pointed up for him. So in a weaker NFC, I certainly think that the Vikings can compete and definitely be one of those teams that get into the playoffs and maybe can make some noise depending on, the matchup and who they play, all that good stuff. At number 10, I have the LA Chargers. Now this team and this ranking is kind of indicative of where I see this season going, and it's mostly due to injuries. This team is absolutely wrecked by injuries. Rashawn Slater is out for the season. That means you have Storm Norton starting at left tackle, who is one of the worst pass protecting tackles I've ever seen. He's absolutely horrible. Keenan Allen's been banged up. J.C. Jackson's been banged up. Joey Bosa got banged up. This whole team is just so injured. That's not even mentioning, your franchise quarterback did not look like himself because he is seriously playing through some big pain right now. I just think that this team is destined to probably feel a lot of pain through the injury bug this year. And it's unfortunate because it's such a talented team, but they're brutally hit by that injury bug right now. They've got to get things figured out. They got to get healthy. This was a bad loss to the Jaguars, and Justin Herbert should not have been out there later on in this game. I understand, though, that this was basically just a injury loss. But you've got to be better. You've got to get Justin Herbert healthy. You've got to get some of his weapons going. And this team's got to turn it around relatively quick because the AFC and AFC West in particular is too competitive, and you'll be left behind if you lose 2 of your next 3 because of injuries. You're going to be in a really rough spot moving forward. And you're 1-2 right now. Your only win coming against the winless Raiders. That's not a great sign so far. You've got to get some big wins here coming up soon. At number 9, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Finally, my Bengals picking up a win over the New York Jets. They came out swinging, which is really important. They'd gotten off to some really slow starts to start the season. They dug themselves into just huge holes. And just by scoring early and often, they were able to dictate the tempo of this game. The defense is playing out of their mind. I mean, Trey Hendrickson had an amazing game. DJ Reader, who did unfortunately get hurt in this game, has been an absolute monster. Hopefully he's able to come back pretty soon. Jesse Bates got an interception. Logan Wilson got an interception. This defense has not allowed a touchdown on the last 20 offensive drives that they've faced, going back to the first quarter of the Dallas game. That's really impressive, and obviously I foresee that ending here against the Dolphins, but this defense is certainly nothing to laugh at. And Joe Burrow and this offense were really starting to get things cooking. They were starting to figure things out. The one big thing is this run game has been horrendous so far. They've got to get Joe Mixon going. It's partially the offensive line. It's partially Mixon just needing to be more decisive and just hit that hole hard and pick up, 4 yards, because he's just dancing around a little bit too much. I think they figure it out. They've been good. And, the passing game really started to get going. You get that first win. Everybody's able to kind of exhale and just focus on the Dolphins this Thursday. It's going to be a really big matchup. I think, the Dolphins are coming in off a lot of momentum. We'll talk about them in a second here, but a short week. This is going to be a big game for both teams, no doubt about it, in Cincinnati. So, good win for the Bengals. You've got to continue to build on that, though, moving forward. At number 8, I have the LA Rams. This team has sat in that 8th spot for 3 weeks consecutively now, and I just don't see any reason to move them off. I think that they played fine. They didn't really play amazingly on offense. You kind of got Stafford and Kupp going once again. The defense has played well, but I think that was also a product of the Cardinals just kind of being bad on offense. This is just a team that I think is still continuing to try to figure things out. I think that a lot of their opponents have come in with good game plans against them, and they need to continue to evolve and develop. And, that sometimes happens with McVay, where he'll hit a rough patch and, defenses have figured him out, and then he adjusts and he's able to kind of figure everything out relatively quickly. But there's just kind of been that rough patch that I think defenses are playing well right now against this Rams offense, and he needs to reevaluate things and unlock that offense a little bit more. At number 7, I have the Miami Dolphins continuing to climb up 4 spots here. They beat the Buffalo Bills. This was just a crazy game. The Bills had 40 minutes time of possession to the Dolphins 20. They had like 200 less yards. They had a third of the amount of offensive plays. It was crazy, and somehow the Dolphins still win the game. It was mostly just stupid mental errors by the Bills. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think the Dolphins did a good job taking advantage of things. Now, they are really banged up. Tua hopefully is okay. There was that weird thing where he was staggering and, it looked like he was concussed, then he was cleared to play. Then the NFLPA filed a claim that, maybe this wasn't done correctly. So it's just interesting to look into. But right now, the Dolphins are flying on all cylinders. The defense really kind of contained Josh Allen really well. And Tua did enough. And that's just kind of what Tua has done this season. He's done enough. And we'll see if that continues. I think that in a game that they have a little bit more, need for offensive firepower, they've proven they can do that, but can they do it on a consistent basis? I'll be interested to see. I think Mike McDaniel has done such a good job with this team. They're definitely a lot better than I predicted going into the season, so kudos to them for that, but we'll see if they can continue that moving forward. At number 6, I have the Baltimore Ravens moving up 1 spot here. A big win over New England. Lamar Jackson is certainly playing himself into that MVP conversation already. He has had an absolutely electric start to the season, and he's pretty much carrying the entire Ravens offense. Duvernay is playing pretty well right now. Mark Andrews is an absolute monster, but Lamar Jackson is carrying this team. The defense didn't really look fantastic against a pretty poor Patriots offense, but they forced some turnovers. That was something, and you get the win. You gave up probably a little bit more than you wanted to, but you score a lot of points. And Lamar Jackson, when he's playing like that, they can beat anyone in the league. So definitely a good week for the Ravens. They're going to be a true team to beat in the AFC this year. At number 5, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lose to the Green Bay Packers. Tom Brady leads them down the field. They have a chance to tie the game. They aren't able to get the 2-point conversion. They were just so shorthanded in this game, missing Mike Evans, Godwin, Russell Gage was kind of in and out. Julio Jones was out. The entire offensive line is banged up. The defense played out of their minds. They played really, really well after giving up some early points to Rodgers and the Packers, but this team was so undermanned. I think that once they get those guys back, Mike Evans will be back this week. You'll hopefully get Godwin and Julio back at some point. But this team, as long as they can get the offense cooking, is a Super Bowl contender. But because of injuries, because of suspensions, all that stuff, it's been difficult. I do think they're going to continue to figure things out, and that defense keeps them in every single game. At number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers. They squeak out the win here against the Buccaneers, like we just talked about. I think that they played well enough. It's weird because, just like the Buccaneers, this defense is really what's propelling this team. and they've got a lot of stars on that defense. I think they played really, really well against Tom Brady, but Rodgers, the offense, it's just kind of run game, RPOs, just, take your shots when you want to. They were also shorthanded, no Sammy Watkins, no Christian Watson, but I think Romeo Doubs had a really good game. They had some nice plays. You got the win. They've got to be a little more explosive offensively, be able to adjust, but you get the win against a really tough opponent. That's really important. And number 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I mentioned with the Colts, they really should have won this game. You lose it because of the special teams. That's unfortunate, but it's also relatively easy to fix. You're going to get Butker back here. Sky Moore, if he catches that punt, this game is completely different. So it's relatively correctable things. I think Patrick Mahomes still played relatively well. I think the defense played relatively well. The one thing that I am concerned about with Kansas City is the run game is terrible. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just really bad when finding holes. His vision is terrible. You're just not really able to get the run game going much at all. Patrick Mahomes was your leading rusher. That's not a good thing. So a rough performance for the Chiefs in the run game, but I think really besides that and the special teams, you played well enough to win against a pretty good team. I'm not worried about the Chiefs at all. Just you got to clean some things up. At number 2, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. This team is red hot right now. Now, you get the win over the Commanders. It's just the sustained success that's making me really excited about this team. I came in really high on the Eagles. I was one of the big proponents of, this team is going to be good. I believe in Jalen Hurts. I believe in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the offensive line, this defense. They absolutely destroyed Wentz. And, man, they're cooking with gas right now. They look fantastic. And I think that they're certainly the team to beat in the NFC right now. They are one of 2 undefeated teams, just them and the Dolphins. So definitely a team to look out for the Eagles here. They may continue to climb here. We'll see. Number 1, though, I do have the Buffalo Bills still. And this may be a little bit controversial. I'm not really sure because, the Eagles are 3-0. The Dolphins are 3-0. But I just think that the Bills, if really anything had gone different, would have won this game. They had so many starters out. Both their safeties out. Your corners are hurt. You lose Ed Oliver. You lose Mitch Morse. You just didn't have people healthy at all. You also had a dropped Matt Milano interception, which probably would have gone for 6. You had, the whole thing at the end of the first half where you fumbled the spike and then had to throw it out and they ran out of time, which would leave points on the board there. And then, the whole sequence at the end of the game where it couldn't get down, they couldn't spike it in time, Ken Dorsey freaks out. It's just, there was so many missed opportunities. You missed a field goal as well. There was just so many missed opportunities. And then the most important one, it's 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Please just quarterback sneak it. Your quarterback is an absolute monster. They try to get too cute. They get backed up. Things don't work out and you don't pick it up. That leads to the butt punt and all that stuff. But I just think that really the Bills were one play away, one thing different from winning this game. They're 3-0. They're still the most dominant team in the NFL. So I'm just not going to hold this one loss against them yet. I think that, if the Dolphins continue to play out of their minds and they're 5-0, maybe we'll have another conversation. But right now, I just can't move the Bills off this spot. They've just been so dominant through the first 2 weeks. So many injuries, so many things that could have changed the outcome of this game that didn't happen. I just am going to keep them in that number 1 spot for now. This was kind of a longer one. I had a lot to say apparently this week, but that's awesome. A lot of these games were really exciting, really interesting. And now we're kind of seeing the NFL take shape here. A lot of the teams that we didn't expect to be good are, now flying through. The Jaguars, for example. We've also got some teams that were supposed to be good that look really bad, and we're moving them down the power rankings. So I think, things are getting a little more solidified. I'm getting a little bit of a better idea of what these teams really are, but it's really interesting, really exciting. Coming up, I have my Thursday show where I do game predictions for every game of the week. So definitely go back and check that out. I hopefully am going to continue to put out some other videos as well, trying to figure out everything with those. Please like, subscribe, comment so you don't miss any of those upcoming videos. I'm really excited to continue putting out content. I would really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye.